up kind of where we left off. But all right, guys, welcome to the Zenlife podcast. Today we have Michael with us.
What's up? What's up? Happy to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me.
And if you guys don't know who Michael is, you're going to know him from this podcast, from all the links and everything, from Instagram. But Michael and I first connected, obviously, over Wim Hof.
That's right.
And come to find out, he's a U.S. Navy search and rescue veteran. He has an awesome story about really why Wim Hof and the whole technique helped him in his life and his recovery. And we'll get all into that. But yeah, we were just really talking about the Paul Selig event that we were all just at. Mm-hmm. So cool.
Yeah, so many friends were there, and just the diverse community that we have now, the age groups that goes from 20s to 60, 70, whatever, but just a diverse group of people that are all really being drawn, just to that perspective and way of looking at things. And it's neat to see that
it is
that different people come together for an event like that.
Yeah, things are changing. Like I was saying before, spiritual community is really changing. When I was in my 30s and just starting to get into all of this and explore and research, I was going to these Edgar Cayce meetups in Phoenix at Unity Church at the time. And I would walk into the room and everyone would look at me as if like I walked into the wrong place. Like, hey, you in the right place? Are you lost? Because everybody in there was 55 and older, and it was like 90% female. And I was like, no, I'm actually here for Edgar Cayce, and I'm interested in like learning more because I had read his books. I was reading his readings, and his readings were actually very difficult to decipher because they were kind of written as if you would read the Bible.
Oh,
so now you read the King James Bible, like thy and I, and it's kind of written in that way. So you have to really pay attention when you read. So if you're just kind of reading through it, it could be a challenge. So actually if you read it and then kind of analyze it, and then you work through it like with a group of people, you can really absorb the information of what was coming through. Mm-hmm. So when I went to Paul Selig last week, I just was taking a look around the room, and essentially he's doing a very similar thing. He's, channeling and talking about life today, and he doesn't really talk too much about future events. That's not really his thing. Edgar Cayce didn't really either. He did a lot of predictions, but most of his work was actually assisting other people in their own health. So doing readings to find out what was wrong based on what he can see inside the body, like reading the Akashic records. And then giving like solutions, natural solutions. That's why he's coined, the father of holistic medicine, natural solutions for their wellness. So thyroid issues, all kinds of inflammatory issues, mental health issues. I mean, he was talking about what depression was in the late 1800s. And it's interesting to see the science catching up with it now to talk about, basically inflammation in the brain is occurring and different things like that. He had also like mapped out the neurological system in the 1800s, and that was something that we didn't know much about until, maybe 30 years ago, knowing about how our neurological network is functioning and how information travels and receptors and all that kind of stuff. He knew it really well. Wow. So when I went to Paul Selig, I was just looking around. It was amazing to see so many people in their 20s, 30s who were fascinated by these concepts. I was like, wow, things are changing.
Those two guys seem to me they want to maximize the now, trying to use an experience, looking back or looking forward, but really about maximizing the present moment. What can we do to really get the most out of the moment that we're currently in? And the present, they're really focused on bringing us present and keeping us present and keeping our life in the present, because this is what we're experiencing now. And to balance that out backwards and forwards, but really about make the most of now.
Yeah, big wake-up call. I've been reading a lot of Paul's books, or the guides' books, because it's not Paul, it's the guides coming through. I think I'm on my 4th book now, out of his different series. And it's a strong, calling to wake up and realize, the main theme is, seeing the divine in ourselves. like that we all, like if we want to progress forward as like a human race, we have to get to this point where, one, we're moving away from fear, because fear-based stuff is of a lower vibration and of a essentially something that exists in the third, fourth dimensional density. It doesn't exist apparently in the fifth, sixth, and higher dimensions, which is kind of an interesting concept to even fathom about stuff like that. But also to truly accept and believe that we are one and we are manifestation of the divine, in the material form. That there's just too much division and separation, whether it's religion, country, nationalism, and there's so many different ways we divide ourselves.
This is what the guides are saying.
Yeah, so it's a lot of that, of just like seeing the divine and seeing other people in their divinity is like really important. So a lot of his attunements are actually very geared towards seeing the divinity in other people, so that we're not being in that form of judgment or separation or more evolved than others, that people are exactly where they need to be.
It's a huge change in perspective. And of course, he refers to it as the upper room. Moving to the upper room where the whole perspective is different now, where you don't carry all that doubt and don't carry the fear and don't carry that separation. And so once we move into that place, those feelings and emotions or anchors really aren't part of us. So now it's a whole change in perspective that allows us to see that divinity in others, and really then all different nationalities or races, become like family.
It's hard. I mean, it's, easy to see the divinity in people that are like doing good things and doing well, but then you look at that person that has done horrific things in this human existence, and it's like, how is that possible? It's a hard concept to grasp. But if you look at religion, and I've been studying ancient history for a long time now, and I like to say I'm an anthropologist by nature, just out of my own curiosity, in the studying that I've done, and all of the ascendant masters, regardless of what time period they came in or what lineages they came through, whether it be Jesus Christ, the Buddha, different folks during different times, they sang a lot of the same things. Really oneness and love, and really talking in a language of vibration that we weren't consciously aware enough to understand at that time. But we're becoming a lot more aware of our own vibration through thought and feeling and manifestation of things. And I think as we progress as a human race, we will learn how to manifest things more real time. We manifest things now, just like Paul always says, we're always manifesting. You're either manifesting in a lower vibration or a higher vibration. So like be aware of what your vibration is, because you're manifesting. And it's kind of that sense of like we draw good things in, we draw bad things in on a daily basis. And we've all experienced that.
That's the first step that you mentioned, is be aware. That is the first step, is that awareness, to feel it and to see it, to know it, to experience it, have that awareness, and then it all can really, come from there, move toward it, become more in tune with it, pay more attention to it as well. The intuition or the guidance there is really important to be aware of, then pay attention to. And Dan and I were talking a lot about what you mentioned before earlier, just about the spirit of people and their behavior. Or the brain, psyche, mind, and then really seeing beyond that to their spirit, and like knowing that they're not behaving in a fashion that really is in tune with their spirit, but they're not aware of it, and try to still have compassion, accept.
I mean, I remember reading that
That's exactly it.
as a young man and not making any real sense of that.
Yeah.
Just, oh, this is just something that I have to know because I was, you know, in some sort of school, or we call them CCD classes when I was younger. And then I was like, wow, as I got older, like, that's real wisdom. Like, they don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're so unconscious. They have no idea. Like, they don't know their divinity. They don't know what they're doing. Like, you have to forgive them. I'm like, wow, that's pretty powerful. You know, same thing with like the kingdom of God is within. You know, it's not in a church. It's not. Raising 4 kids on her own, so we had to kind of fend for ourselves, which was, you know, obstacle and a blessing, you know, as well. I learned how to find my way around, and you know, just grew up in kind of in the streets, really, writing graffiti, hanging out, getting into trouble. Had bad mentors and role models. That's, you know, that's what I like to say. I don't know if bad's the right word. I don't like to use good and bad, but I guess that's what I needed at the time. But those are the people I looked up to, you know, because those are the people who had pretty LL Cool J and all these guys were coming out of Queens, you know. So that was very much in the consciousness of the area that I lived in, you know. And then you had the punk rock bands too, and the Ramones, and you had a lot of that kind of New York, you know, hardcore kind of scene, which was just an interesting time period. But I didn't get into spirituality until much later, years after my military service, way into my corporate years. But the interesting thing was, when I was younger, I was actually interested in spirituality as a young man, because there was, my mom was actually, you know, even though she was Catholic and stuff like that, we lived in like a stereotypical Italian Catholic kind of upbringing. She would always have like a psychic friend. You know, there was always a psychic that she would go to on occasion and reach out to. And that was standard. And that would be like the little kid, like waiting in the living room while my mom was getting a reading in the kitchen, whether it was some sort of tarot cards or some sort of reading. And so at a young age, like, I was very open. I didn't even realize.
It becomes like normal to be exposed to that. Just becomes part of life and more accepted. For you, didn't seem to be a strange or outside thing to you. It was just part of.
It wasn't too weird. Yeah, it was like, okay. And I was accepting that, oh, wow, people do have these special gifts. And I was like, I guess I accepted that at a young age. And even, I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Long Island medium, Teresa Caputo.
It sounds familiar.
She has her own show. She's pretty famous, and, you know, she has her own show. But, like, yeah, my sister, like, had gotten readings from her and had worked with her a little bit, and my mom had gotten readings from her. So I was like, yeah, even though I grew up in this stereotypical Italian Catholic upbringing, I was relatively open at it as a young man. But then I kind of covered all that stuff up as I got into my teenage years and then into my 20s and military career and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, easy to kind of block it off and don't be in touch with it, kind of like put it dormant for a while. And I was almost that way with plant medicines, to have done a few journeys and just like block it off, put it to the side until something triggers it.
It must have been hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you did a lot of ceremonies.
Lots of ceremonies. You have month-long events, you know, from the jungle to the mountains and stuff. It takes a few months being back to you know, let that sit for a bit. But when you're not with the ones who are doing it or talking about it, not with groups that are, you know, talking about these concepts, you're back in the regular life of, you know, friends or coworkers and job, it can kind of fade a bit and get put away in a box, kind of like you're talking about your exposure and events there. It gets kind of put away, and then something triggers it to bring it back out, to like ignite it somehow. And that's how I felt when I met Dan. It got ignited. And so for you, something maybe
What
came.
brought it back out for you?
Well, I had psychedelic experiences in my teenage years. I think I had tried LSD maybe by the time I was 16.
Growing up in Queens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was around, and we tried it, and I was into Pink Floyd and that kind of Deep Forest. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Deep Forest.
No.
It was like kind of like
Okay, try that.
yeah,
Deep Forest.
Yeah.
Were you more into like the rock or the hip hop?
I
Because you
was
mentioned
hip hop.
hip hop.
Yeah.
Me too. And a lot
Yeah.
of those artists you mentioned, LL Cool J, and
Nas.
who else? Nas,
Yeah.
Jay-Z, of course.
Back when Mark
Really
Wahlberg
big.
was Marky Mark.
Yeah, that's true. A Tribe Called Quest.
Oh,
was
I
like,
love.
They
Okay.
were amazing. Yeah, Eric
That
B.
dude.
and Rakim.
Oh my
That's like
God.
late 80s, early 90s. Chub Rock.
Yes.
Yeah, I grew up with all that. There's an amazing documentary on Netflix called The History of Hip Hop.
Okay.
That is
Wow.
like really a must watch.
We're doing that.
Yeah.
If you want to they actually tell you where hip hop came from. It actually came from Pig Meat Martin. If you just go on YouTube and you look up Here Comes the Judge, Pig Meat Martin. It's an old show from, I believe, the 60s, and it had this kind of catchy beat, and he would rhyme. And that's like the birth of like how they got into rhyming and all that. So that was really cool. But yeah, I grew up in
And then
that
you had the
culture.
Sugar Hill Gang with
Yeah.
the what was that?
Funkmaster, no, Grandmaster Flash.
Yeah, Grandmaster. But they had a song. It was like technically the first hip hop song.
Oh yeah, it's called what was the name? Yeah, they talk
Can
about
you
it.
look that up? Sugar Hill Gang, first hip hop song ever.
It's called it's basically the story about the Bronx. They talk about how the Bronx was burning, and it was essentially they were talking about how like how it really was.
The Sugar Hill Gang. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, one of the first.
Because I just saw them perform it live on some nightly show on ABC or something. And these guys are old now.
Yeah,
And they're performing
right.
the first hip hop song ever, still.
Yeah, we saw that.
Live.
Yeah.
Like they must have done that a lot.
Yeah, I forget the name of that.
Rappers
Delight.
Delight. That's it.
Thank
The
you.
Rappers
Yeah,
Delight.
it was right there. And
Yeah.
it,
Rappers, and we were just talking about Alex's whole thing with his media company is to create a delightful experience. And he's doing a great job.
Yes. So yeah, so that was just that was the early days, concrete jungle, early beginnings. Pros and cons. Growing up in that environment, lots of. And I mean, I was taking the train in and out of Manhattan at like the age of 13, so you kind of find your way around and you figure stuff out. But also, a lot of obstacles as well. I mean, obviously the upbringing, with my father being removed from the situation was tough, and, all the pressure my mom had to go to and kind of living, really struggling, financially. But also completely disconnected from nature. I never realized that was like a thing that I needed to be connected to. In basketball courts, and there just wasn't a lot of nature. I wasn't doing anything in nature. I didn't know much about nature until I actually joined the military years later, and then I obviously spent time in nature because of the nature of my job. But
and just the mindset, the perspective, the energy, it feels to me like stressful on the body somehow. Like you're more in that fight and flight,
it's intense.
sympathetic type of a survival type of a mindset,
Yes.
where your body is really tuned in, like you're hyper aware, because you have to be.
Hyper aware is a good word.
And it's really from adrenaline, not just from being at peace and being in a
Tranquil,
broader perspective and tranquil, but you're aware from your body's hormones being released to keep you alive, because you're like trying to survive here. And when the body wants to survive, that's when the mind and the ego just completely take over. You get into that mindset where you are just like amped up on your own, hormones and really taxes the body a lot, or would be very, stressful, or it could be exhausting, tiring, and then aging, faster too, and not have, and maybe at some point start to show itself in body effects, whether it be organs
Oh yeah, it's
or
gonna
abuse of
the hormones and stuff,
yeah.
all that
It's gonna
adrenaline,
phase-
adrenal
Mhm.
burnout,
It's
the
gonna pay its
thyroid,
toll.
Man,
all of that.
How
High
you-
sympathetic tone for long periods of time will wear you
Yeah,
out, create
really.
disease.
really hurting yourself. And then you mentioned about getting into nature. It's almost the opposite. It gets like a complete change of environment and feeling and stuff.
Yeah,
And
what brought you to Arizona?
So I was stationed in San Diego, California, at a place called NAS Naval Air Station, North Island, which is on Coronado Island. Most people who go and visit San Diego and you're on Coronado and you see the gray helicopters flying over, those were the helicopters that I flew in. And San Diego was great. I was there for 5 years. I had a wonderful experience being in that city. But a friend of mine actually from Queens, who I grew up with, had moved to Scottsdale. And I came to visit one Thanksgiving because, when you're in the military, you're just so used to spending a lot of time alone, right? Out at sea, missing holidays is kind of part of the job. So I happened to be home that Thanksgiving. And instead of traveling back to New York, I went to go visit him in Arizona. And I was like, wow, this place is beautiful. He had a nice house. He had a pool. He had a 2-car garage. That's unheard of, in New York City.
Oh,
You
man.
gotta wait a
Yeah.
really long time to be able to save up for that. In most cases, taxes are high, and it's expensive to live in the suburbs. $500,000 kind of thing. And here he was at 25, and he had all of that. And I was very much interested in that at that period of life, right? I was into materialistic, my version of what I thought was success. And I was like, I want to buy a house. And San Diego was getting expensive too at the time.
Yeah, very much
It was
so.
getting popular.
Yeah.
So I decided it would be a good move to come to Arizona. I had a friend there. There was plenty of work. It was 2004. The city was doing well. It was kind of, the real estate was booming. And I came and I found a job and bought a house and went back to school and just started to integrate from military life, what we call in the Navy, from navy blue to corporate gray. That's what I was doing.
So you came out here in 04.
Came out in 04.
Very cool. And
25 years old.
It's wow.
I was
Okay.
25 when I came out here.
Wow. So you've been out here 15 years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what I really want to get at here is we got some really cool things that you're doing and you're bringing to the community. I mean, you got the optimized hat on, the body, mind, spirit, and body, mind, breath.
Yep.
Excuse me. Mind, body, breath. There we go.
There we go.
And we're talking about the pain is what really, in your story, is what really kind of got you receptive and ready for all this. So now in the last 3-4 years, what really opened you back up? What are some of the modalities and things that you've gotten into?
So I started to explore. So I had pain, and pain I had was post-military, during my military service. I started to develop neck pain, back pain, neurological pain. I didn't quite understand it. Doctors didn't understand it. So basically I was treated with anti-inflammatory, muscle relaxers, and painkillers. And I stayed on those throughout my military career. And there were some times where the pain was so difficult that I actually couldn't fly or couldn't do my job. But I was kind of a, close your mouth and keep on pushing kind of guy. I wanted to do the job, and I didn't want to be in this administrative, sit in some back office kind of thing. So, that's what we did in the service. We just kept moving forward. And when I got out of the military, I would get hit with these waves of pain where I was like, wow, it would stop me in my tracks. And it was neck pain, neurological pain. And then my body started to shut down. I started to lose a lot of strength in my hands and my fingers. I started to lose my balance. My body would start to shake out of control. It's called clonus and neuropathy. And I was being treated. General doctors, of course, didn't know what to do. They prescribed medication. Then I went to pain specialists, so they would give you those steroid injections, the long ones, to like destabilize, or it was basically anti-inflammatory. And then eventually the pain went away, and it turned into complete numbness, where I was like with lost feeling, and I said, "This isn't good."
It went more than just the muscles being numb.
Yeah, my hands stopped kind of working. They became really clumsy, where I couldn't even tie my shoe, open up a can of tuna fish, or even hold a bottle, because the hand strength was so weak that the bottle would fall and splatter. So I went to a neurologist, and they basically said, well, based on your symptoms, there's a good chance you might have multiple sclerosis. And my grandmother, my mom's mom, had multiple sclerosis. So I kind of watched the decline of that, and I was like, wow. And that's genetic. And I was very much into that frame of mind of genetics, you know, like everything is passed down. I hadn't done my research yet on stuff.
Like your disease history is like
like
planned out
you're
for you
a
already
victim of
genetically.
you're a victim of your genetics. Exactly. I really believe that. My family believes that. I mean, to this day, I think they probably still believe that. But
So you almost expect it's going to come to you too.
yeah, I said, wow, I got caught with it. All right. My mom's mom had it. I'm having neurological issues. So I went to a neurologist. He sent me to get an MRI. And I was so scared because I was ready to get the news. And the MRI basically takes a look at your brain, and they can tell if there's lesions on your brain or whether or not you have multiple sclerosis. That's how they do it. And sure enough, the guy, he was an ex-military guy, and he knew that I was really nervous. And he came to me. He's like, hey, I'm not supposed to tell you this because I could get in trouble, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a radiologist, but I look at these all day long, every day. I want you to know that I didn't see any multiple sclerosis in your reading, but your doctor's going to call you in like 2 to 3 weeks. So like just keep an eye out for him, you know? But he's like, your neck is messed up. I was like scared, of course, because my neck was messed up, but relieved that he had told me that. So for the next 3 weeks, I was just kind of waiting for that call. And then eventually the radiologist called me and was like, hey, you don't have multiple sclerosis. Good news. Bad news is your spinal cord is being choked, meaning that the signals from your brain are essentially being disrupted to the rest of your body, and you have spinal fluid leaking all over your back. You need emergency surgery. Boom. So I went to a doctor, gave him my MRIs, or orthopedic surgeon, and they were like, hey, what are you doing this afternoon? I literally went on my lunch break. I went on my lunch break for this first like interaction appointment.
And they're like, can you stay and get this done now?
Yeah, he was that serious about it. I was like, I don't have anybody here. I don't have any family here and stuff. I was like, I got to make arrangements. My job, I was, working in a corporate environment at the time. So sure enough, that Friday, this was a Tuesday, he gave me the news. That Friday, I got the surgery. I made plans to have all that done. And I had the surgery done around, Thanksgiving of, 2007, somewhere around there, 2008, somewhere around there. And the surgery was nasty because they actually cut your throat open. They move your esophagus over. They remove the discs and stuff. They completely remove them. And then they fuse your neck with titanium. And then they basically put cadaver parts in your neck so that bone grows with your natural bone. And then you wait like for a year for the entire healing process to occur. But the titanium stays in your neck forever, and it restricts movement.
Yeah, it seemed very stiff for a long time after.
So
this was about a year recovery.
I just was like, I should have taken more time, for sure. But I got right back into old habits of recovering. I am the Wolverine. Fast, and I did recover fast. I recovered fast, and Thanksgiving I had the surgery, and then March I was kind of starting to get back into exercise again, and I think by December I was already drinking again alcohol. So 1 month after my surgery I was back to drinking alcohol. Now I was drinking alcohol and taking painkillers.
Was that more physical or mental or both? Really?
Just numbing.
Yeah, numbing.
You know, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but when I reflect back now, it was numbing, pain, physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, spiritual pain. I was numbing, and then I had access to painkillers, so I was eating those, Percocets, anti-inflammatory, and all of those things. And I went right back to work, right back to grinding, not taking care of my body, not taking care of my mind, not taking care of myself. 1 year later, I mean, of course, we had a variety of checkups leading up to that. 1 year later, boom, pain is back. It is back. Mental pain, physical pain, numbness, all of those things. I go back to the doctor. He says, the discs above and below where we fused, they are messed up, so therefore we got to go back in and do another surgery, more titanium, same procedure.
Oof.
And I said, I'm not doing it.
Oof.
He's like, what do you mean you're not doing it? I said, I'm not doing it. I don't want to go through that process again. And I said, there's got to be another way. And he goes, well, there isn't, but you know, what are you going to do?
But
so,
good luck. Go start your search.
So I did.
That's all he knew to share. He didn't know of any other.
That's what he had. He didn't know anything else.
That's their procedure,
that's
protocol.
Their protocol. So I got attracted to a book called The Mind-Body Prescription, Mind-Body Connection by Dr. Sarno, who was a surgeon who basically was talking about this idea of psychosomatic pain, how physical pain or emotional pain manifests itself in the body as physical pain. And
this has been our topic the last 2 weeks now.
Dude, you're nailing it. We talk about this stuff quite a bit.
This is really amazing timings. We've been leading up to this conversation, just an awakening that Dan was sharing with me a few weeks ago, and it's just been going on and on now for a few weeks. What you're talking about, this mind-body connection, and it can be in so many different levels, but you're just acknowledging what we've been really focusing on now and really feeling and trying to understand the last few weeks. You're right in line with that.
Yeah, that's what started. I was like, oh, that's an interesting concept. I wasn't even thinking about emotions. Like, I looked at everything from a very physical, biological perspective, like a car, this part is messed up. You remove this part, replace it with this part, basically like a tune-up, you're getting a tune-up. That book opened up my mind, so I'm forever grateful and thankful for Dr. Sarno and his work. If you have a lot of pain out there and you're interested, read his book, because he really does a good job of correlating the types of emotional pain and how it relates to different types of physical pain in the body. It gets very detailed. And back pain is an epidemic. I mean, everywhere you look, people got back pain. There's back pain everywhere. And there are pain management clinics everywhere. And it's actually a really big business.
All different types of modalities, whether it be acupuncture and lasers and, of course, chiropractic. And, so many different ways to approach the pain, trying to relieve it from different, angles and different management systems. There's so many of them, but it really shows how big of a field it must be. If all those different fields and all those different practitioners,
billions of dollars,
can be in that business, it's a really big number of people.
So he talked a lot about that and said, well, humans been around a really long time. Like, why are we so weak? Why are we hunched over in pain all the time and can't do these basic functions where, our ancestors were walking from, Europe to, from Italy to England, right? Like, we're tough people. We're a tough race. We've survived a lot. Why are we hunched over in pain? Because, we're sitting at a desk. But it really talks about the psychosomatic piece of pain and manifestation of pain in the physical body and how it comes through the spinal cord, and then it's in the tissues, and then there's the inflammatory response and all the science and physical stuff behind that how the body actually operates. So that took me down the rabbit hole, and that's when I started to explore and learned about the mind. And the first person that started to really teach me about the concepts of the mind were Bruce Lee, who I was always interested in as a young man, and also Eckhart Tolle.
What a good combination. Man.
Yeah.
That covers a lot right there.
Yeah. It's like, again, she's seeing two huge perspectives, like two ways of looking at the same thing. It's so powerful to get the different angles, and it broadens out to really be more encompassing to really be able to address it so much more
Yeah.
effectively.
That's awesome.
And that was, I mean, that was the first time I was even like really thinking about, wow, the present moment. Like I knew the word, but I never quite understood that term. The power of the now, right? The new earth was what I had read. And then that the mind, if it's always forward thinking about the future, anticipation is where my anxiety was coming from. And the thinking about the past too much was where my depressive thoughts were coming from. And I woke up for years during my corporate life, and when I had physical pain, mental pain, I woke up for years gagging in the morning. So it was like, it became a very normal occurrence for me to take a shower in the morning on my way to work, giving myself no care time, of course. I was like, get dressed, out the door, coffee in hands, like no mindfulness, preparation, none of that. Gagging in the morning, purging. Because my body was like, hey, this is all this excess energy that's being created by the mind that needs to work its way out, and the body knows what to do, but it's not good to be purging every morning.
Blowing my mind right now.
So I was
what you're
purging
saying.
energy every morning. I didn't know what that was, and I kept it a secret because my girlfriend at the time, who I had lived with, she was just like, "What's going on in there? Like, you okay? Like, why you throw up every morning?" And I was just like, "Man, don't ask me any questions about it." Like, I was not interested in being vulnerable at that point in my life either, nor did I understand what this was, but I did see it as a sign of weakness, and that I knew that something was off and wrong. So as I started to learn about my mind, my body, and learn from the teachings of Eckhart Tolle, Bruce Lee, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, all of these guys started to come into my consciousness at that time. Edgar Casey, the purging started to stop, and I started to gain clarity. And the interesting is the pain started to stop. So then I started to look back, okay, when was the times that I had the most pain? Like if I look at the time period when I was in the most pain, I was really hurting, and my neurological system was really not functional. How was I living my life at that time and moment? Oh, I was living hard. I was drinking hard. I was going out hard. I wasn't being caring or kind to myself or to others. So I was creating this pain. And that was an interesting concept to adopt.
And perpetuating it.
So that's really what started to open me up into spirituality, into all of these different concepts, and what eventually led me to plant medicine, Wim Hof method, and many other good things in my life. So,
wow, that's great.
Pain
When
and suffering.
you first opened that book of, what was the name of it? The Dr.
Sarno.
Dr. Sarno, you opened his book. You were so ready for that wormhole to be opened up. I felt that when you were telling this story, because you're not going to do the surgery. You need to figure something else out.
Yep.
So you were just like wide open for all of this to come in. You mentioned some really great names of some awesome people doing great work out there right now. And it's so cool to hear you kind of verify the things that they're saying, because you have your own story, and it's like so uniquely true to you what they're saying. And I popped in there and said that you were perpetuating it because as you know, if you're just doing the same routines every day, making the coffee the same way, sometimes even like moving your body the exact same way through the day, you're just running the same program. And as Joe, I think, says, Dr. Joe, like you're literally living in the past.
Yes.
Which I think is a really interesting way to look at it. And that opens you up to, whatever possibilities are there. Because the question is, do you want to keep living in the past? I mean, maybe if it's enjoyable, you can, keep rocking that for a while, but is it supporting your growth?
It's like Groundhog Day. That was a movie with Bill Murray where it's the same day over and over again. Yet he calls it that because you're living the same day, the same, path you take, the same habits and the same things you do every day. There is no growth from there. It's just it's like a treadmill. It's like the hamster on that wheel. The hamster wheel in the cage, it just spins around. Movement is taking place, but there's no forward progression, no growth, no more
Stagnant.
awareness.
Yeah, it becomes stagnant.
In all areas.
A lot of folks are stagnant. I was stagnant for many years. And I always have to remind myself of that because, I want to judge. I'm like, you're stagnant. You're being stagnant. I'm like, oh, wait, I was stagnant for years too. So
Yeah,
I paint
that's
so
right.
hard on everybody. Michael.
Yeah,
Chill
big
out.
time.
Chill out. But
Yeah.
programming was really interesting. Bruce Lipton opened up my eyes to that. He opened up my eyes to two things. I'll be forever grateful for his work. One, I love his background. I mean, he's a New Yorker guy too, and he was a scientist. So he was a biologist. So he was like very much rooted in the science. But he talked a lot about subconscious programming. And I didn't realize, oh, wow, yeah, there's programs that we've been downloaded, many programs, of course we have, right? So I thought that was really interesting to learn about programming, and then also the epigenetics, which 10 years ago was not widely accepted. It seems to be a lot more widely accepted today. 10 years ago, when I was paying attention to epigenetics, it was pretty woo-woo, and pseudoscience stuff, right? And now you see a lot more people talking about, of course, the environment has all of these implications and impact on our genetics. So that's really the two things that I took away from his teachings, which translated into many other things. I've just been like compiling like all this knowledge, like little bits and pieces from all of them.
And what I love about Optimize and really just the work you do is you're kind of creating this environment for people where they can tap into the epigenetics, where they can strategically change their environment, whether it's literally the cold or the red hot sauna.
Yes.
And just the beliefs that are just like in the consciousness of the air when you walk in Optimize. It's amazing.
Thank you. I really wanted to incorporate that because, if we get into this philosophy of this machine or this modality is going to fix you or heal you, well, what's the difference? It's the same as going to the doctor and saying, hey, doc, I'm not feeling well. Give me the pill, and the pill's going to fix me. This mentality. So I just really wanted to incorporate a place where people slowly start to understand, depending on where they're at with their own development, that all of our healing abilities are inside. They're inside. And I learned that from many great people, Wim Hof being one of them, that the healing capabilities are inside. And cold water is amazing. And yes, there's so many good scientific benefits to what cold water is doing for inflammation and your skin and many other areas. It's good stuff. It feels good as well. But it's also like this controlled environment that's putting your body in this interesting situation. And if you take a busy mind like mine, which I was like, if you guys are familiar with brainwaves, I was like a high beta kind of guy, high beta waves. Joe Dispenza talks about that a lot. And it takes those high beta waves and puts me right into theta waves. And now I have 2 to 3 minutes where I'm in that high or that theta wave state where my mind is in that suggestibility trance-like state, the same place that you get into when you're in hypnosis. I'm going into a deep meditation during my 3-minute ice bath. And for that 3 minutes, I'm telling myself really wonderful things. Or
nice.
attunements. I'm basically using that time to bring in positive energy, realign my cells, ask my body to heal different areas. I'm like using it as a time to have that direct talk with my body. And that was a practice that I learned from doing so much of this. Is like essentially gets me into deep meditative states. So it's good for my body. I'm feeling good, but it's also amazing for my mind. So I do my best to translate that at Optimize. So thank you for recognizing that, Jesse and I. It's what we teach. And we really just want to give people access. I mean, that's the key, is just access, because they have other options and community. And
that's so good. You bring in the mental benefits too, as well. Because I had not really thought about that myself so much. I was more into the body benefits. And for me, having a few, injuries from different activities I've done, whether it be lifting weights or snow skiing or other, type of events I've done, I've got some relief as well from the cold. And mine's just a very, minor example of a few normal injuries you might get through sports or whatever. But your body's been through much more than the average person's life would take him into. The situations you've put yourself in and accidents that may have occurred in the line of work that you were in for many years was probably very traumatizing physically to a body to cause, the damage that it did. And so now to see relief in that capacity too, that you're getting, physically, but also you bring in the mental benefit as well. It's very extreme, and very few things can do that. It would take very strong medications and anti-inflammatories to give any kind of benefit, which would have a huge number of side effects. But now you're getting those benefits without negative,
without the pharmaceuticals,
but with positive side effects instead of negative.
And to practice. And, I look at a lot of our military force, and I was very involved with the military community. Both in the military, of course. I did helicopter search and rescue for a helicopter squadron in San Diego. We did combat search and rescue, meaning that we worked with special operations groups to insert and extract special operations teams like SEALs into areas. We would pick up, train for downed aviators in hostile territory. I went to SEER school. I went to combat search and rescue school. I was an anti-submarine warfare operator, meaning I was a weapons specialist. I knew how to operate torpedoes, hunt submarines, Hellfire missiles. We would fly out of Fallon, Nevada and blow up tanks in the desert. So I became a weapons expert, and my mind became very much geared to destruction. I remember getting out of the military, hiking Camelback Mountain, looking at the mountain and being like, wow, I can call in an airstrike and completely eradicate this entire area. That's how I would think.
That's the perspective, the point of view you have is like, what can be done here?
Yeah. And my girlfriend would be like, you're nuts. Like, what are you thinking about that? I'm like, oh, this is an excellent point for a sniper tower. Wow. Like, they would be like completely like, they'd be in trouble. I have a great bird's eye view here.
Because that's all you can think about, right?
I was always strategically planning on how effective we can be, because we were like efficiency guys. We were really efficient. And
it sounds like you were great at what you did.
I was pretty good, yeah. I got a few medals. And
your mind's being active because
I got selected for Air Crewman of the Year for the entire United States Navy, which was pretty cool. So yeah, I was good at what I did. I always had a lot of passion about what I do. I'm like a full speed ahead kind of guy. But yeah, those types of thinking, I think that's where the military guys have a hard time with, like getting out of that line of thinking and into a different vibration. That's where I think a lot of their pain and suffering comes from, plus high sympathetic tone. And there's a type of flight that we would do. It's called nap of the earth flying, or low-level flying. Basically, we would fly at nighttime, night vision goggles. I'd be in the door on a gun. We had a 50 cal machine gun. I'd be in the door, and we would be flying real low, sometimes 100 feet off the deck, 50 feet off the deck, 150 knots, 120 knots. We're flying fast. But you're making right and left turns, so think about your tail. Your tail is swinging left, your tail is swinging right. So you can hit telephone poles, telephone wires, mountains, tall trees, pretty much anything that's out there. And because we fly so close to mountains and we practice this type of training so that enemy radar cannot see us. So an enemy radar is taking its sweep, right? It's sweeping over a specific area. If I'm wicked close to that mountain, it doesn't even know that I'm not the mountain. So that's how we're able to fly in, right? We fly in, we fly out. So we practice, these types of things.
Getting close.
Getting really close to mountains, meaning that we're like a half a rotor arc away.
So they can't see you.
Yeah, half a rotor arc means that you are one half the distance of your helicopter to the mountain. One rotor arc would be one full rotor arc, two full rotor arcs.
That is close.
Yeah, we would get half, and I would be in the door. So I'm on the right door. We have a left gunner and a right gunner, and we have two pilots. If that pilot literally just goes a little bit too far right, and we're at nighttime on night vision goggles, we're going to, our rotor is going to hit the mountain, and we're going to tumble down. We're all dead that fast. And we practice and we train. and this is what we do. So think about your focus and attention is completely external. And Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time, is that all of your energy and your focus is on the outside world. Your outer world is more real than your inner world.
Dude, there's another layer to that too, because you have when you're in that state where a little turn like that is going to lead to your whole death, all your attention is focused on that external right here and what's going on in your environment. But your attention is also focused on your internal state to keep you in that peak
high stress,
high attention.
high sympathetic
So that's your
tone.
internal. So like, you wouldn't want your pilot to not be in that internal state.
No way. You can't
where
be.
he's like that.
You don't want no reflection. I don't want anybody doing any self-reflection during that flight.
Yeah.
There's no time for inner work.
You don't want anybody doing like the breath you do when you get into the cold bath.
No, we're high tone.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're like,
it's heightened awareness.
Yeah, high beta. So the mind is in
there.
high beta, high stress, adrenals, all these things, right? Necessary. I mean, you experience this if you're driving in New York City in rush hour traffic and you're driving across the 59th Street Bridge and there's people walking and there's stuff going on. You know that with a slight turn of that steering wheel, you can kill yourself or kill other people like that fast. So your body knows that. It's a dangerous situation. Your brain waves are super active. Your external world is more real than your inner world. And I think we get trapped in that, where our external world is always a threat. And if we're not doing inner work, meditation, breath work, and all the different types of inner work that exist out there, plant medicine being one of them as well, cold baths as an inner work practice for me, then we're not really learning how to get into those states where our inner world becomes more real than our outer world. So I was stuck in high beta, which caused a lot of my inflammation, which caused a lot of my stress, which basically wore out my neurological system. It's like taking your electrical system and putting it on high, just like, and it's always going.
wow.
You know, so I lived many years like this, and yeah, you can take pharmaceuticals that will like work on symptoms, but if you don't find a way to start to reverse this programming and these thoughts, you're in trouble.
That's where your body started to harm itself.
Exactly.
By being so heightened awareness and so agitated and so alert and just total fight and flight,
Shitty
all
sleep.
sympathetic,
Yeah.
not good sleep, not good restoring sleep.
Yeah.
Your body just finally starts to break itself down
Yeah.
and really show itself, whether it be from, like you're talking about, all the injuries and all the ways it was showing itself physically, but of course the mental was showing itself. The mental, toll you were taking on yourself was also expressing itself in the physical.
Yeah. I mean, and I think like there's a spiritual element to all of this, you know, I mean, scientifically, like, yeah, all that makes sense. High stress, high sympathetic tone, inflammation, all these things will eventually lead to an autoimmune disease, which may lead to something even further, like a cancer or something, if not treated or dealt with.
Oh my gosh,
You
you're
know?
just nailing it right now.
Right.
I see so many people go through that.
Yeah, just
But-
like it's like a sign. I think like spirits, like, hey, wake up, like knock knock, like, hey, wake up, and like we can pay attention to the signs or not. I wasn't paying attention to the signs. There's a lot of subtle cues, you know, that I didn't pay attention to, and then it finally was like, okay, it's like someone choking you, like you don't want to pay attention. And finally, it had me on my knees. And I said, all right, I submit. Like, what?
I feel like Western medicine, just general medical school, just the practice they go through, that assembly line to become, a basic type of a doctor, they don't really address all these issues, and they don't come prepared to deal with it. So now when patients come in that have a variety of things taking place, as you've been mentioning, they don't have the schooling or training to handle it, and they're just going with what
In their
tools they have.
toolbox.
It's in the toolbox. What do I got?
It's a holistic approach to everything. I mean, I'm sorry. There is a holistic approach to everything. And the same thing with the people with nutrition. I mean, I see people, they like will nitpick nutrition. They'll get everything dialed right in perfect with nutrition. But they're not like focused on their mind at all. The fact that their mind is like so busy and they can't settle down and they're anxious all the time, and they're actually being like super controlling, and they think that it's just the nutrition that's going to make these big changes. So I like see everything from I try to do my best to see everything from like a complete perspective, you know, nutrition, movement, breath, you know, body, spirit, mind,
and that's going to keep you going for a long time, man. And what is cool about this community, by the way, I wanted to ask you, what is your human design and your profile?
Nice. I am a generator. My buddies like to call me like an old diesel. You know? I'm an old diesel. I keep going. But when I'm done, which is so true. Like when I'm done, I'm like, I settle down. And I am the heretic investigator.
Okay.
What is that, 5'2"? I forget.
Heretic is a 5.
Yeah. Investigator.
Investigator's a 1.
5'1".
Yeah.
I'm a 5'1". Heretic investigator. I got a bunch of channels open.
So you know you're the heretic and you're the investigator by design?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I call out bullshit.
What's the heretic?
They call out bullshit. Like I see things when we're not what they are.
Okay.
And they will say it, you know. And it's funny because I always was like that. I was like that in the Navy too. And you get yourself in trouble when you look like that way in an area. In corporate too, oh boy.
Oh gosh.
I was conforming in many ways. Like I can conform because like I like balance and order, and I see things in a very balance and order kind of way. And I like that. When things are too loosey-goosey and there's no order, it makes me uncomfortable. You know, I like balance and order. But I'm also like not super conforming, you know. I'm a bit of a radical in many ways. My old boss, he was really cool. He was ex-Green Beret. He basically referred to me as like, you know, a bit rebellious. Yeah, rebellious. I said, yeah, I guess I do have a little bit of rebellious in me. But I do really like order and balance. That's really important to me. I try to seek balance in all things. I got a reading done by a guy who's a Mayan cosmologist, and he said that my life purpose is unity, according to Mayan cosmology. So I'm trying to seek unity in all things, which is really telling. But the human design stuff's super fascinating. I really like it, and I'm learning more and more about that. And I like astrology too.
Me too.
I'm a Pisces, actually.
You're Pisces?
Yeah.
Do you know your sun, moon, and rising?
Yeah. So my sun is Pisces. I'm February 23rd, 1979. And my moon is Capricorn, thank God. It keeps me grounded.
Yeah, same for me, Capricorn moon.
Yeah, it keeps me grounded. And it gives, I think, work ethic. We have good work ethic, Capricorns. And my sun sign, rising, I always thought it was Cancer, but I realized that it's actually directly on the line of Cancer and Leo.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like,
the Cancer Leo.
Yes, but I think it's more fire in Leo, so I think that's what my rising is, which my friend Nicole Duran, she does a lot of really good readings on that stuff. She gave me a nice detailed overview of how my rising kind of plays a role in my life. So as a Leo Cancer cusp, which apparently is pretty rare. So it was interesting.
It is rare, but it's actually the only cusp I've heard of. I've heard of my brother's one of them, another friend I know who talks to me about human design a bit. And the cusp is interesting because then, like, even for you, it's kind of up to interpretation. What do you do? Like, mix the two? Or is this kind of like where I'm going, both of these characteristics?
Yeah, and I'm probably whoever you talk to might give you a slightly different definition of how that plays out.
Yeah.
But the human design stuff's interesting because I'm mentally very like focused. Like I make a lot of decisions from my mind, where in human design they usually tell you, hey, you shouldn't be making decisions with your mind. You need to, feel more. But in my chart, actually, it's like beneficial for me to make decisions both through feeling and through the mind, which I thought was interesting.
You mentioned also investigator as well, which is really part of your past too, to investigate, to read some books and look at a philosophy or a perspective and invite that into you. And that could be the similar thing I did when I met Dan, was opening up to other perspectives, opening up to to, seeing other ways of doing things to investigate and to like have that really cause more inside of you to come alive, like a reawakening of a path you may have been on in younger years. You talked about how you're open to things more in the past, and then it took something to really trigger that, to get that to really be acknowledged and see how it's grown, and then to accelerate it. And that came from being the investigator to look at all the authors and speakers, presenters that you were talking about.
Yes, and also my buddy, we call him Jungle Mike. He's the one that actually introduced me into human design. He calls me an old hound dog. He's like, man, you can sniff bullshit from a mile away. That's what he says. I was like, yeah, I kind of can. So
that's great.
Yeah, I like it. All that stuff's interesting. Anything to help me know myself.
Discern.
I take interest in.
I'm seeing that word right. I'm feeling the word discern right now, where you're taking all the information in, and being as you are, you can like snip the things out really and separate. So you're separating what you take in and make part of you from what you don't. So you're being discerning in that, which is so good too.
It's in your design. You're from Queens, so you're no bullshit.
Yeah, get some of that. You get that. There's part of the culture there because everyone's like weary of everybody. It's a high stress environment. Everyone's weary. Yep. Yeah, I used to, park my car at night. I would put the club. Do you remember the club?
Yeah, the club. I do call that. Yeah.
I had an alarm. I would put the club and a column lock every single night on my car just to like go to bed. And it's crazy. I didn't realize how crazy that was. But so
24/7 fight and flight mode right there.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
I'm on high alert. I'm ready to go at any moment here.
Exactly. And here's the thing with the military stuff. It's very easy to say, all my pain and suffering comes from the military. I think it's very easy, and a lot of us do that. I was in the military, and I was, deployed to Afghanistan and all this kind of stuff. And all of that stuff has a huge impact on us. And we have to work through it in a natural way. But also, we forget that a lot of things from our upbringing are also carried forward and sometimes are advanced or, are just more extreme. They become more extreme during our military service too. So a lot of my pain and suffering really was a combination of all of it, and it was all unresolved. So I worked really hard and doing my best. I'm not fixed, like I'm human, and working towards, doing the best that I can in this life, but really resolving issues and not trying to create a bunch more. So just really learning how to be kind to myself, learning how to be kind to others, and just use discipline in my life, because I really believe that discipline is the key to happiness. When you say what you're going to do and you follow through and you do it, you feel good. And I think in society we lack a lot of discipline. In our military community, they got great discipline because they're given that gift. They're actually forced that gift. Actually, we're all forced to have that. So if we can just use that discipline in other areas by the food that we put in our mouth, waking up and moving and exercising and following through on our word and integrity and all these things, they go a long way in helping us to feel better.
Wow. Yeah. And all those things that you've been through and experienced and grown from have really given you the perspective and place you are now to really share with others and create that unity, to be a really good guide, coach, mentor in those ways. I know you sure helped me so much. I did my first 2 experiences in an ice bath with you there.
That's right.
Guiding me through it. You can call it coaching or guiding, but leading me through that journey, and just the life that you've had has made it possible for you to really know what somebody needs and to see where they're at. And that time you came to me at the right moments and saying the right things to help me get through that journey, I was able to share with a friend who came over, had not done an ice bath before. And I was just like, well, what would Michael say at this moment?
Channeling Michael.
I just totally channeled you, and he had the ice bath experience. And then he did awesome. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. He was in the 30s when he did it, about mid-30s. he got out, and after he got, recovered from that, and kind of got warmed up again, we were talking. He goes, man, I wouldn't have been able to do it without you guiding me through
Being
it.
there for him.
Because I was just ready to go probably, at a minute. He was just like really felt done. But just sharing what you shared with me, he just really was thanking me the same way that I thanked you. I thought, wow, I had to tell him where it came from. So
That's
I told him it
awesome.
came from
Thank
you.
you.
And so that really is carrying forward. Yeah.
Appreciate that, Sprout. Yeah, I mean, we're all doing really good work in our communities. I watch what you guys are doing and spreading like just good information about fasting and nutrition and spirituality and breathing and energy and having these types of conscious conversations and connecting with different people. And we have so many crossovers. We know a lot of the same people here in Arizona, which has been great. So it's great to have you guys as allies, in this service that we're all doing. I really believe that. And I learned a lot about myself, of course, and we didn't really get into too much plant medicine today, but plant medicine's an interesting concept. And I always ask, like, I did this military life and lived this queen's life, and I did all these like very normal, what you would call normal things. And I thought that was odd that I got into this spirituality kind of work and mind, body, and all this stuff. I was like, why me? What? I don't understand. And like, well, you're super relatable. Like I can basically connect with people that would not maybe take information from somebody who looked different, I can look the part in a sense, I can connect with these overly maybe masculine kind of guys, ex-military, corporate, grinding kind of guys, and reach them. Where maybe if I had dreadlocks and, and I was, just kind of in a different uniform, like they wouldn't have those open ears. So I thought that was really interesting. I learned that one ceremony, that I was kind of being used as a tool to connect with a different genre of the public, and then I was very relatable in many areas, and people would have an open ear. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I always try to remember that, and I keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's so true, so true. So many people are still in that mindset of the perception, the way somebody looks, and the judgment or prejudging. They're stuck in that mindset. They do it. They'll prejudge without even trying to.
We do it.
And they'll make an assessment based upon how somebody looks or dressed. But then at some point, through so much, growth takes place and connection takes place and awareness comes in, we start to release that. Where now we don't do that.
Everybody prejudges.
Now
even the people at the Edgar Casey meetups.
Oh yeah,
Hey,
they judge
do you
the hell out
belong
of,
here?
They judge the hell out of me.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
That's true. So you're a good example right there.
They were so intrigued, but so happy too. They loved that I
Yeah.
was there. They were so happy.
Well,
Yeah.
the first thought is probably you wouldn't like this. So you're not going to like this.
No,
We don't want to
uh,
like, yeah.
Yeah, they were just like, wow, you're not here to like make fun of us. Like you're here to actually really learn. And yeah, I thought that was an interesting experience. I like that crew. They still meet up here in Phoenix, actually.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in learning more about that, they're
Yeah.
still meeting.
Well, we have about 5 minutes. I wanted to see if you could do us for a little music.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it. I am new to the Ravast. I am still learning, but I am happy to play a little tune.
Awesome.
So let's see what we got here.
It looks like you can maybe back it up like 5 more inches if you need to. Yeah, there you go.
Let's see what we got. I drop your Ravast on accident.
you. Ooh.
Nice.
And Michael, that was fantastic. And I like how you follow a certain tempo with it. You're very rhythmic in it, in a fashion of like drumming to a beat, but you have the
different notes. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I just kind of followed that like rhythmic that pattern that I used with the djembe, that kind of steady pattern, and just kind of work around the different notes and just kind of keep that thing vibrating and moving. So I'm still learning. I picked up the B Russ, and this one's the first time I ever played it. Has some different notes, but really beautiful. They do a great job out there in Russia. So.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was quite a journey. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just felt like that journey of where we're coming from and where we're going to, and just it was taking through the different tones and different sounds there. Yeah, it felt really good.
I almost came in and did some rhythmic breath work too. You know what? You have a Revast, so you should maybe, if you want to, guide some breath work with the rhythm of the drum.
In which way?
So can you grab it again?
Sure. Let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah, these pair so well together. Just
Back up here.
sounds and rhythm and breath.
I'm gonna put this down. Can you guys hear it well? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to get around.
Yeah, I was seeing that. I was seeing that too. I couldn't think of how to help.
Can you swing your left hand like inside of it, maybe? Inside of that, like something like that.
Nice.
Okay. You can imagine, like Wim Hof, kind of down in the horse stance. Take the right hand, go out to the left. Exhale. Fully in. Letting go. Dude, nice synergy there. That was perfect.
Yeah, that was outstanding.
Nice.
Thank you for that.
Fun. Yeah, thanks for letting me play.
That felt great.
It's cool to try out some of these different scales. I'm just so new to this instrument, and yeah, it's beautiful. It's just I think it touches people in an interesting way. I play this at my workshops, and I teach a class at Optimize on Wednesday night called Jungle Rhythms, where we do breathing exercise, live music, and meditation every Wednesday night. Would love to have you guys join anytime as my guests. Yeah, that sound, people aren't used to that sound because they're like in meditation. I break that out, and then when they come up after we're done, they're like, what was that?
What is that?
What is that?
What do they call it?
UFO.
UFO thing.
Yeah.
Spaceship.
Yeah, it's like, what was that? It was so beautiful.
Takes you to outer space too.
Yeah, it has an interesting effect on our like vibratory
Played
field.
it in ceremony?
Oh yeah, I played it. Yeah, I played it in ceremony.
That's cool.
Yeah, and
That's
because
really cool.
And because I'm in it, like,
Oh, me too.
I get like,
I did it
I
in
get nuts.
2 ceremonies in Peru, and it was just like the most like most intimate thing ever.
Because you're not thinking, you're feeling.
Yeah.
That's like when you play really well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
amazing. I did like an extended version not that long ago, and I just kept going. I was just channeling. It was beautiful.
Did Clay record it?
Probably. He always records stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
I know. I got to ask him that one.
That's awesome.
So.
All right. Well, are we? We're about, okay, I think we're at about 70, 75 minutes. All right, we'll finish it there. I think this elicits a part 2 for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll go deep on some of the other stuff we didn't cover.
Yeah. Is there anything coming up as far as like Optimize, like events or anything you want to announce or link people to?
Yeah,
where they can find you?
Absolutely. So our website, if people even go to websites, it's everything's done through social, right? It's www.optimize.me, and we have cold plunges and infrared saunas and red light therapy and contrast therapy. We teach breathing exercises, compression therapy. We have classes on a wide variety of different things. We got great community, so come down, come check us out. We'd love to have you just come experience the center, anybody out there. If you want to follow me personally on Instagram, you can follow me at Michael, Michael _the_ARC, and then follow us on Optimize as well, and it's Optimize, spelt with OPTIMYZE _me. And follow us as well on our journey to help people. You know, really our mission is giving people and helping people take responsibility for their own mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health through natural methods, just so that they have, we all have options. And if you take a proactive approach towards your mental health, physical health, emotional health, and wellness, you stay strong, you stay grounded, and hopefully you don't have to rely on, doctors and surgeries and all those kinds of things. Just being more proactive about your life, and then education is one of our big pillars too. So come down to Optimize anytime. Locally, I teach the Wim Hof method. If you guys are interested in learning about Wim Hof, the method, the 3 pillars, breathing exercises, mindset, commitment, and of course, the favorite one for everybody, the one that elicits the most fear, is cold therapy. I teach that workshop 5 hours. My next workshop is January 25th at the Center for Divine, where I met both of you guys. I'll be teaching there again. Hadi plays a really mean gong. So,
He does.
Yeah, so it's really cool after the breathing exercise to do that. And then I do some retreats out in nature and all that good stuff. I'm pretty easy to find, so.
Yeah, definitely get him on Instagram, you guys. Michael the Arc on Instagram. Michael _the_arc.
Awesome.
Well, Michael,
So
thanks for
good.
being here, man.
Thank you.
This is
So
great.
good. It was
Appreciate
great.
it. Great setup. Like I said, I love what you guys are doing. Thanks for having me, and open look music, plug and play any way possible.
Join forces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look forward to more.
So
Cool.
It'll be great.
cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for listening. We will catch you in the next episode.